This Journey to a Dream podcast is brought to you by Kawasaki Insurance. Hello and welcome to Journey to a Dream. I'm Beth Espy, and this is where I talk to people who quite literally have a dream, and that dream is to race on closed roads here on the Isle of Man. Now, for some people, it is quite straightforward, but for others, it is a little bit more complicated, and the racer we're going to hear from now is still some way from that dream becoming a reality.
My name's Israel Gillette from Tennessee, originally born in Tennessee. I have Romanian residency, though, and I drove here, and took the Channel Tunnel and then a ferry over to the Isle of Man.
And is this your first time over here?
No, I'd say it's about my seventh trip to the Isle, at least 7. 2013, I came over with my girlfriend at the time to catch the TT.
Were you into bikes already, presumably?
Yeah, anything fast. I was already doing some racing as a late teen, go-karts, and in my early 20s, I was racing bikes as well.
To what sort of success? How good were you at it?
Oh, well, go-karts I was extremely good at. Motorcycles, I just like fast things, and I wasn't really that good at it. I mean, I was in the novice groups. I was kind of, I could latch on to the end of the top 10 or something, but in those days I wasn't all that fast.
But you kept going though.
Yeah, well, I kind of stopped racing a little bit. It got too expensive. I got up into Formula Fords out of karts, and man, it was just massively expensive. And went to university and had a job and lived life, getting in trouble. Then, I had a business and things like that, and I went back to racing, and there's a little story to that, but...
You going to tell us?
Well, if you want to hear it. So you've seen Dan here, and for those of you listening, Dan's my border collie rescue. He's from Tennessee now. Dan came from the same animal shelter my previous best friend Daisy came from, and I got her when I was about 22, 23 years old, and I had her for 15 years, and she traveled all over the world with me, and I think she made it to 47, 48 countries, 4 continents, and she was in good shape, but we'd done all these different adventures together, and I'd had plans to go to Africa, ride through Africa on the motorcycle with her. And just all of a sudden, though she was in excellent condition, she was a black lab, border collie mutt, and she just got sick and passed away. Oh. And it was kind of crushing for me. And, I'd done all these adventures and had plans for more, and then I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And this was 2017. And I thought, going forward, what I'm going to do, I want to change my plans. And I thought, well, I've not been racing in a while. I want to go back racing again. And, I want to race on the Isle of Man. And within a week or two, I went on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a Suzuki SV650 in good shape, and I bought it. And that very day I was racing, and I still had a racing license, and they honored it. First day back I was running as a novice, and I won my first race. Like that day, I was first day on the bike. That though I hadn't been racing those years, I had been riding a great deal all over the world, and I was wondering, is it going to translate riding around on these Tenerays and Africa Twins and whatever else I had, and yeah, it did. I was a much better rider then than I had been when I was trying to race in my early 20s and late teens.
That's incredible. I suppose you were doing all of that stuff around the world. Presumably, were you working alongside that? How were you financing that?
Well, okay.
Nosy question, sorry.
Yeah, well, sure. It's fine. My first really big trip, not just the transcontinental, talking about trans-European bike trip, which was my first, was trans-European from the UK to Romania. My first really big one was from Tennessee to Argentina and Chile, and I did that by myself. And I just saved money. At that point, I was still finishing up university, and I took a job at the end of school, and a carpenter job that paid pretty well, and saved the money. And I lived like a cretin through the trip. And like not really spending much money, not many hotels. Not that the hotels in South America were terribly expensive at the time, but just did it on a dime, did it as cheaply as possible. And there were a couple of times where I had to replace a clutch on my BMW, and that's a bear of a job, it being a shaft-driven motorcycle. Somebody would step up and help or advance me money for a job, or things just worked out. Since then, pre-COVID, I was importing and exporting motorcycles, and I was sending shipping container loads of bikes and back to the States. And then I had a shipping container load of bikes meant to come to Europe to sell, but that COVID kind of goofed that up. So I've been working as a carpenter again, so when I go back to Romania this time, I'll fly to the States, and I've got a carpenter job lined up. So that's kind of how I do things. And
how did you end up wanting to be in Romania, I guess? Is that another story, isn't it?
Yeah. In the early 90s, and in 1990, my father went to Romania. And he kind of fell in love with the place. He had he started a foundation and bought a farm in the late 90s. And the farm's really nice. It's it's a medium-sized farm, and the foundation it continues to live on, and I'll be involved one way or another. I'm not exactly sure with that, but I do like it in Romania. So I like being on the farm.
So we heard about Daisy, and you mentioned Dan, who, if we can describe, is just sitting down next to you. I can't actually
He's laying here. He's not really bothered about anything, and he's hearing us talking about him, but he doesn't care. He's just laying there.
So when did Dan come into your life?
In 2018, the folks at the animal shelter I'd gotten Daisy from, they were very familiar with Daisy's story, and all the cool places she went after being a shelter dog. And I got a message on Facebook on Messenger, I believe that's how it was, from the lady running the animal shelter, and she said, we have this border collie here, and he's in on a hold, but if you want to come in and meet with him, and if you want him, he's yours. So I went to meet with him, and he was looking a little disheveled back in his little cage, and he had dingleberries hanging off his fantail, and I was like, I don't know. And but I started talking to him, and he naturally knew what I was saying. He was a smart dog, but he was very, very skittish, and I was thinking, well, is this dog going to be able to ride on a motorcycle?
Because that's the first question anybody going to pick up a dog would have.
Of course. So, I could tell he had some potential, but I had some misgivings. So I thought, well, dog, I'm going to give you a shot. So I did the paperwork and took him home, and I let him get comfortable with me for a few, 2 or 3 days. And I had a Suzuki DR650. And I had my friend ride it out to a kind of an abandoned road on the edge of the town I'm from, Johnson City, Tennessee. And I took his car out, and then we had the panniers on the Suzuki. And I was like, all right, dog, this is not fair, but if we're going to be a team, you have to be able to do this. And so I loaded him up on the bike and, put a set of makeshift doggles I'd made out of swimming goggles.
Do you call them doggles?
Well,
that's brilliant.
That is a trademark name. So there is a company that makes doggles, but
never heard it before.
These were not doggles. They were home fashioned because I didn't have a set of daisies available. They were in Romania. So, I loaded him up in the pannier, and he kind of dug it. He was all right with it. And I fired up the engine. I was kind of worried about that. And he jerked a little bit, but it idled, and he kind of settled back down. You could tell he liked his pannier. And I was like, okay, buddy, it's do or die time. Let's rock and roll. And he was a natural. I mean, he was just great at it. It was amazing. It was amazing. And, that was 5.5 years ago. And there's no doubt in my mind at this point he is the world's best, in the history of the world, the best motorcycle dog. It's not close. It's not close.
Well, I've never heard of another one, really.
You haven't?
No.